All right, so there's two words presented in that video that I want you guys to keep in mind as we study through this morning, but also the next couple of weeks going through Deuteronomy, is this word of listen and love. I'm actually going to add a third word here because Moses is going to tell them and remind them of what God has spoken to them during their time in the desert, what God has spoken to them through Moses and just through many events that took place. But also keep in mind kind of the word of what did they see? Of what did God's people see as they were in the desert? How did God demonstrate not just through speaking, but also through showing his power to them? His protection, his provision, and his guidance. How did his people see God working and moving around them? And obviously he was calling his people to love him and to love him through obedience of this new covenant that he laid out for them, the 10 Commandments. And he's saying if you do all those things well, you're going to succeed in this promised land. But if you choose to not do that, you choose to go your own way, you choose to not have faith, you choose to doubt like the previous generation, there's going to be a curse on you because you have chosen to walk away from God. And he's going to let them do that. He already let the previous generation do that, right? Where they chose to not have faith in God, to be stronger than the nations that were in the promised land. So God said, okay, if you don't want my promise and my provision, that's your choice. And you can live over here in the desert and die in the wilderness and die in separation of my goodness for you. So Moses is reminding these Israelites before they enter, the choice is ultimately yours, just like the choice was for your parents and your grandparents. Which one are you going to choose? And the choice is the same for you guys as well. Are you going to choose to see how God has provided for his people, his power over everything, his guidance and his direction in your life or in the life of those around you that you've seen? And you know what he is capable of doing. Are you going to follow him into a land that is going to be fruitful and that he desires for you to take? Or are you going to reject him and live on your own way because you want other things in life that are going to bring you pleasure immediately or that you just think are more fun for you? And then you're just going to be in a life that's essentially a curse. God's not going to bring fruitfulness and joy into your life in that situation because you've chosen to walk away from him. So we still have that choice today. And as we study this, I want you guys to think through, how have I seen God in my life? How have I seen him in the lives of those around me to help me understand that I can put my faith and my trust in him in every area of life? What has he spoken to you through his word, through your quiet time, through what God has revealed to you on Sundays and Wednesdays? What has he shown to you of his character through his word to take you through those times that are difficult, that are hard, and require faith and require trust? And are you going to obey his law by loving him and only serving him and seeking to have a relationship with him first? The choice is yours. Which one are you going to do? So as we go into this book of Deuteronomy, Moses is pleading with his people, don't be like the previous generation. Trust in God. He will fight for you and he will provide for you. This land is incredible and his blessing is immense. Take hold of it. So as we start out this book of Deuteronomy, I want you guys just to go to Casey's notes, his little single page here. There's a couple things I want to read for you guys before we get started. We're going to start on the very back page here, or what I think is the back, that has all the chapters listed out. So I'm going to read for you guys the first two paragraphs on here of the theme and the purpose. So Deuteronomy is a book focused on repetition of the law and what is truly life, living in the truth, to remind the people all that God has done and to educate the younger generation so they learn from the failures of the previous generation's disobedience. It is a repetition of many stories, standing stone markers, moments, and a change in leadership from Moses to Joshua in the closing chapters as Israel is about to enter the promised land. So let's go down to this next paragraph. There is an emphasis on the themes of remember, retool, and resolve. So to remember for the Israelites and for us is to reflect on all that God has done to care for us, love us, protect us, and provide for us. To retool is to put some life application behind the remembering so that your desire to walk in obedience strengthens you. And to have resolve is to be courageous in your faith and trust in God to take new land as the Israelites soon do in Joshua. So I want us just we're going to take about 10 minutes here, and we're going to do a kind of shorter, quiet time to start with, and then I'll give you guys a longer time later. But I want you to think through, first of all, these 3 words here. Actually, it's kind of like all 6 words almost. The 3 I shared at the very beginning, and these 3 here. I want you guys to think through remembering how has God demonstrated himself to the Israelites so far in the Old Testament? What has he done for them to demonstrate his power, his authority over all, his love for them, and his character? And I want you guys to write those things down. I want you to think through how has he done that in your life personally as well. Remember back to what he has done for you and how he has demonstrated himself to you. And then I want you guys to think through the word retool. What things has God required you to retool in your life recently? What things from Sunday lessons or Wednesday lessons has God really prompted your heart to change something in your life? Maybe it's something from your own quiet time. What are those things you have practically sought to, yes, God, I need to change this because my perspective on this is so wrong. And I need to change it to your perspective to bring you honor and to bring you glory. And then resolve. What are times in your life that you have retooled and you have made those changes that God has told you to do? And you were courageous and you stepped out in faith and God was there with you. He strengthened you. He gave you peace in a situation. He gave you words to speak in a situation. He provided someone to comfort you or to be with you. I want you to celebrate those moments in this quiet time. But I also want you to think through, have I even put myself in a situation to need to be courageous? Have I been following God's direction in the times that seem like, wow, I don't know that I could do this by myself? And you've maybe shied away. What needs to change in your understanding of who God is to actually take hold of that thing he's calling you to do? To actually have resolve and to have courage if you don't have examples of that currently in your life. Because that is what builds on itself. That is why God put these people through so many trials and so many difficult things in the desert, is because he was trying to produce a generation that could truly take the promised land, that could truly put their faith and dependence in God to take this promised land and to fully trust in him that he would provide them strength and power to do so. So I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes to do this. So this will be, you're going to stay in your seats here. You guys hopefully have a blank sheet somewhere that you guys can do that on. But I want you to reflect on those things. Think about the Israelites and think about your personal life as well. And then we'll start to go through chapters 1 through 4. All right, so let's go ahead and bring it back in. All right, hopefully you guys had maybe a pretty good list of things that you'd seen from Old Testament, and hopefully you had a start of a list for you personally of what you have seen God do around you, just to help you understand who he is, how he's demonstrated himself to you and has, revealed incredible strength or courage or something that he has produced in you. I think it's important to reflect on those things, because there's going to be seasons in life that are really difficult. And it's important to always reflect back on, how has God shown himself faithful to me? Because it makes then that trust in that moment of your hard situation even easier. Because you think back to what he did for you previously. And it causes you to say, I can't trust him. Because I trusted him in this season of my life, and he provided for me. He protected me. He did this for me. So I pray that you guys can let that be a regular routine for you in your quiet times as you reflect back on what God has done for you. And maybe you can write them in your Bible when there's seasons where God really shows himself to you. because that'll really carry you through those seasons of wandering and waiting when you just feel like, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to trust him. But you can look back to where he was faithful in your life or in other people's life around you, and you know what? He's the same God. I can still fully trust on him and depend in him. So I want us to turn to Deuteronomy chapter 1. We're going to start going through a couple of chapters here. And while you guys turn there, I'm just going to read you guys a small section at the beginning of my Bible that kind of gives a little summary as to the intro of Deuteronomy. And I'm going to read that to you before we start chapter 1. So it says, deep in his soul, Moses felt that the entire history of the Israelites depended on what happened next. Poised on the banks of the Jordan River, they were about to enter the promised land and face the most crucial test of their lives. How would they react to the new land? Would they keep their covenant with God or reject it for the more immediate pleasures around them? Desert bred, the Israelites knew little about the seductions of the other cultures. So if you guys remember, most of these people were either born in the desert, in the wilderness in these 40 years, or they were just young children when they were in Egypt. So they really only know life in the deserts, of wandering, of not these nations around them and the different things that they had. So let's keep on reading. So desert-bred, the Israelites knew little about the seductions of other cultures, the exotic religions and glittering wealth that they had. They had spent their lives in near isolation, sheltered from civilization. Now they were marching into a land full of enticements. Kind of to me almost sounds like what your season is about to be as you go from being in high school, living with mom and dad and being under their rule and authority, to pretty soon you guys are going to go to college. And your eyes are going to be open to all of the possible choices and options you have in life. Many are going to seem very glamorous and seem like, wow, I want that. Like, that seems really cool. I really want that. That you haven't had the choice to choose now because you've been living with your parents in your home. But you have so much more freedom when you're going to go away to college. It's kind of like what the Israelites were going to experience going into the promised land. There were going to be many things that were going to try to pull them away from God. Many things that were going to draw their attention away from God potentially. And you guys are going to come into a season very shortly that is just like that. And the question remains for you, just as the question remained for the Israelites. Are you going to follow God first? Are you going to seek him in his direction first and understand, is this really going to be something that God would desire me to do? A choice that is really going to be honoring to him? Or is it a choice that is only honoring to me and my desires right now in my sinful nature? Is this really something that God wants me to do? You guys are going to be presented with so many choices. And it's honestly going to be very difficult to say no sometimes. It is going to be incredibly difficult to say no. But you know what God was doing with the Israelites? They were wandering in the desert for 40 years for them to understand who God was better. For them to be put through trials in different seasons in the desert, for them to fully put their trust in obedience in God. For them to know, wow, I can truly depend on him, and I can truly see where he is leading and he is guiding me, and what decisions are going to be honoring to him. And that God would say, yes, I can bless that. Their whole season in the desert was preparing them for the promised land and what it was going to take to live there and to take the land from those who currently live there. Sometimes God is going to do that in your life. He's going to put you through a season of waiting where he is trying to produce something in your heart, in your character, to allow you to take this new thing he has for you. But you still have a choice to honor and to glorify him, or to honor and glorify yourself. And Moses is going to plead with them as they go through Deuteronomy. Please keep God's covenant. Please stay in his love and his protection and his direction. Because as we're about to study, if God's not for you, if you're not following his direction, he is not going to fight for you. But if you follow his direction and his lead, he will fight for you and you will win every single time. But you have to ask yourself, am I really going the direction that God is calling me to? That's really hard to decipher and to decide in your life, which is why you constantly study God's word to know his voice and to know his direction. So as we come through chapter 1 here, we're going to see that Moses is going to just remind the people of where they came from. So he starts in chapter 1, kind of the first section here, in verses, 1 through 10, of reminding them of their time in Mount Horeb. Do you guys remember what happened at Mount Horeb? Does anyone? There's like these 2 giant stone tablet things that they got. The 10 Commandments. They got God's new covenant. God declared to them that he wanted to have a new covenant with his people. And this all happened at Mount Horeb. And they had the 10 Commandments, obviously, right? And they said on from there that he said, I have a promised land for you to take. And I will fight for you, and I will provide for you this land, and I will fight for you if you follow me. So you see, Moses reminds them of this, of where they came from. Some of these people weren't even alive at that time that he is speaking to. Some of them were just young children at the time. So he's reminding them of where they came from. And then you come through section 19 through 25. You see they went through the desert from Mount Horeb, and now they have come to the land just before the promised land. And God's people ask, like, hey, can we send in some spies just to go look at the promised land and see if it is what God promised it would be? Is this really going to be the land that is going to be fruitful for us? So Moses sends out 12 spies to go check the land out to see, is God really faithful and true in what he told us about this promised land? So I want to read for us in verses 21 through 25 here. See, the Lord your God has given you the land. Go up and take possession of it, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, told you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Verse 22, then all of you came to me and said, let us send men ahead to spy out the land for us and bring back a report about the route we are to take and the towns we will come to. The idea seemed good to me, this was Moses speaking, so I selected 12 of you, 1 man from each tribe. They left and went up into the hill country and came to the valley of Eshcol and explored it. Taking with them some of the fruit of the land, they brought it down to us and reported, it is a good land that the Lord our God is giving us. So the spies declared the land good, like it is what God promised. Like we are so excited for what this land is. And Moses had told them, don't worry, God is going to fight for us. He is going to provide this for us. But what happens in verse 26? Let's read 26 through 35. But you were unwilling to go up. You rebelled against the command of the Lord your God. You grumbled in your tents and said, the Lord hates us. So he brought us out of Egypt to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. These are the people who are currently in the promised land. Verse 28, where can we go? Our brothers have made us lose heart, they said. The people are stronger and taller than we are. The cities are large with the walls up to the sky. We even saw the Anakites there, another very terrifying, fearful nation of warriors that they thought, we can't conquer them. We can't defeat them. We're not strong enough. They're too big for us. Verse 29, then I said to them, do not be terrified. Do not be afraid of them. Verse 30, the Lord your God who is going before you will fight for you, as he did for you in Egypt, before your very eyes, and into the desert, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a father carries his son, all the way you went until you reached this place. In spite of this, you did not trust in the Lord your God, who went ahead of you on your journey, in fire by night and by cloud by day, to search out places for you to camp and to show you the way that you should go. When the Lord heard what you said, he was angry and solemnly swore, not a man of this evil generation shall see the good, and I swore to give your forefathers. So we see they missed it. They had been demonstrated God's power in front of their very eyes, and they still doubted. They still doubted his power and his plan to give this land to them. That's so sad. But we see that through that, he was able to bring up a new generation, a generation that had seen his acts in Egypt, seen his acts in the desert, seen the disbelief of their parents and their grandparents, to hopefully instill into their hearts and their minds, no, I truly can trust in God. I can truly trust that the plans he has for me, he will make succeed if I understand they are truly from him. Honestly, sometimes that's the hard part in our life, is thinking through, are these plans and these ideas and these dreams that he has given to me, are they actually from him? Or are these my own desires? That's why we tell you guys to study God's word so much, to hear his voice better, to understand when it is him truly speaking to you in prayer or times in his word, so that you can confidently say, yes, this is God leading me. I know he will fight for me because this is truly his direction for me. This is truly the thing that he is laying before me to accomplish or to conquer or to achieve. I need to have faith that he will provide in that. So as you see, as we jump to chapter 2, God is making his people wander. And this whole generation that has decided to turn their backs on God and lose trust and faith in him, to wander in the desert to die. And there's something very interesting as you go through this chapter, as there's a number of nations, these people groups that we actually study about and are talked about earlier in the New Testament. These are other characters of God's people that he has told, hey, I'm going to give you a land that is going to be yours. You're not my Israelite chosen people, but I'm still going to take care of you, and I'm going to give you a land that's going to be yours, and you're kind of going to be protected and set aside over there. And then we're going to see in chapter 2, as God led his people through the desert and through the wilderness, they're going to pass by these nations and these people groups, that God has set land out for them to be theirs and theirs alone. And as they come to these people, he's going to tell them a number of times, do not provoke these nations. Do not fight against these nations. Do not go to war with these nations. If you do, I will not fight for you. Because I have given them a land that I have promised to them. And I am one who keeps my promises, who will allow them to stay in their land and not be conquered. I find that so interesting because the Israelites chose not to follow God into their promised land where God would protect them and lead them and allow them to be victorious. And now he's leading them through other nations where he had promised land to. And he is still going to protect them. Even from the Israelites, God's chosen people, he is going to protect them from. Like, I just think that is so interesting and kind of like a gut punch to the Israelites of like, wow, we chose not to follow God and trust in him. But he's doing the same for the people he promised land to generations before us. Wow, our unfaithfulness, that has led us to a dangerous place, and a place of wandering and a place of waiting. So we see that God tells them, I will not fight for you because this is not my direction. Just as I said earlier, if you choose to not follow God's direction, he's not going to fight for you. But if you choose to love and obey and trust him in his guidance and direction, he will fight for you and he will be victorious. So as you go through that section, we don't have time to read that today, but it is just very interesting that God is protecting those nations and reminding this new generation that if you do not follow me, I will not fight for you. But if you follow me, I will. So that brings us to verse 24 and kind of the rest of the chapter, into chapter 3, where most of this generation has died in the desert that had rejected God's protection and guidance and promise of taking them into the promised land of being victorious. And we have this new generation that has been brought up and is about to come into the promised land. And they're going to come across two nations that God is going to tell them to go to battle with. That God is going to lead them into battle. And there's something really cool that he says here. Oh my goodness, I got to find which verse it actually is. Oh, I lost my spot, guys. I'm so sorry. Okay, verse 21 in chapter 3. So at that time, I commanded Joshua, you have seen with your own eyes all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. The Lord will do the same to all of the kingdoms over there in the promised land where you are going. Do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God himself will fight for you. And before that, actually, if you turn back to chapter 2, there's another section where God is going to declare that he is now going to start to fight for them. Kind of did these out of order, but that's okay. So in verse 25 of chapter 2, he says, this very day I will begin to put the terror and fear of you in all the nations under heaven. They will hear reports of you and will tremble and be in anguish because of you. Because the Lord their God is going to start to fight for them. Because he has set their path for them and their direction for them. Because he is preparing them to take this new promised land. He is preparing this new generation to have faith and trust in God. And as we come to chapter 4, we see that we have a section that he has told them in 1, 2, and 3 of what had already happened, the things that God has been instilling to them, the things that God has been teaching them in this time of wandering and this time of waiting. He has been building their character to be able to trust him fully as they take this promised land. And before they come into this promised land, Moses sets before them a command of obedience, a follow this God that we have, that has demonstrated himself over and over and over again. But you also need to be obedient to his commands, the things that he has set up before us so that we can be a set-apart nation from everybody else. So he tells them here, chapter 4 and verse 6. So observe them carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding among the nations. You hear all about these decrees and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. What other nation is so great as to have their gods near them the way the Lord our God is near us whenever we pray to him? He has truly prepared this generation to take this new land and to go into a very difficult season where they're going to have to enter in different battles and different things that he's going to command his people to do that is going to cause them to say, we can only be victorious if God fights for us. We can only be successful if God fights for us. But Moses starts this transition in chapter 4 and through on, the middle section here of Deuteronomy, that God desires for you to succeed. God desires you to be fruitful in the promised land. But you have to observe his commands. You have to choose to follow him. Just like we saw in the video, just like I mentioned in the beginning, the choice is ours. To either choose a life of blessing because we choose to follow God and obey his laws and his commands, or we choose a curse by rejecting him and going our own way. The choice is ultimately ours to make. Which one are you going to make? Are you going to choose to follow him? Are you going to choose to follow him in the direction that he is leading you into maybe this promised land that you guys might have? I pray that you guys in our last quiet time this morning can think of things that God is laying on your heart to pursue. It might not necessarily be a promised land, but it is something that God is hopefully calling you to do this week, this month, this year. And I want you to seek him of what is that? What needs to be produced in my heart and my mind to be able to take that and to reach that and achieve that? Just like God was leading this new generation through the desert to prepare their character and their trust and their faith in him, he's going to have to do the same thing in our lives as well. As we wait on him He's really waiting on us to change. He's waiting on us to reflect on him of, God, what do I need to change about my heart and my understanding of you and my relationship and my trust of you? What do I need to change to be able to be fully prepared to take this new thing you have for me? Those seasons of waiting can be so difficult, but what we do in that waiting season is so important. It is so important. So I pray in those seasons of waiting that we seek him and ask him, God, what are you waiting for me to do in my heart and my mind? What do I need to change? What do I need to grow in? What do I need to get rid of to be able to take this new thing you have for me? So as we spend this time, the remainder of our time together in quiet time, I want you guys to think on those things. What is God calling me to? What is he producing in me? I want you to think through, what has he called me to in the past? What characteristics in my life has he worked on for me to take hold of those? How have I grown in my trust in my relationship with him to be able to do those things? And I want you to celebrate those and to think through, wow, God has truly grown me and has taught me so many things. Because you know what? He's going to have something even cooler in store for you later on. He's produced something in you to do one task. And if you've been faithful and successful in that, there's going to be something even greater that is going to require more waiting and more preparation and more refining of you in your relationship with him. Are you willing to do the work to accomplish that, though? So you guys have about 15 minutes now to spend in quiet time and think through those things. And you guys can fill out the Keith's kind of quiet time or retreat Sunday sheet here of different goals that he has for you in your life. There's different things that he has for you to take hold of. And I want you to spend time to truly ask him and seek him in those. Don't just write down the things that you think you want to accomplish. What does God have in store for you and is asking you to pursue? Go ahead and spend some quiet time. You guys can spread out in here. You guys could also go in the lobby if we like as well. And you guys will be dismissed at 11:45, okay?